I'm so grateful today for all of the team and the volunteers, everybody from Experience Church, everybody from the Jack Singer. We've been doing Easter at the Jack since 2016. It's a lot of fun. It's grown, it's changed. It looks different today than it did that first time. But we're grateful for these relationships and grateful that we can worship God in the heart of the city. I want to take a few minutes today and I want to look again at that scripture, Mark chapter 10, verse 45. Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. His life as ransom. I don't know what you think when I hear the word ransom. The only real context I have for a ransom situation is movies. Somebody getting kidnapped, there being some sort of offering. I think Mel Gibson was in a movie called Ransom. I don't even think I've seen it, but that's where my mind goes. That's what I picture. The word ransom is the translation of a Greek word that means to buy the freedom of a slave or a prisoner. So when these words were spoken by Christ, there was an understanding that a ransomer would bring a huge and sacrificial payment to replace the slave and purchase their freedom. Jesus did that for us. A ransom in place. It was a substitution. The Bible says it was for many. It wasn't a one-for-one deal. This was Jesus saying, I'll take death. I'll take sin. I'll take judgment. I'll take the weight of every mistake you've ever made. I'll take all of that on me. I'll take the full responsibility for all human sin, all human evil. I'll take it on myself so many can be free. Many, it's not just a few, it's numerous, it's multitudes, it's everyone. Easter, the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus wasn't done for an exclusive small group of people. It wasn't done for those who have an inside scoop or some sort of special access. It wasn't done for people who have religious experience or who grew up in a religious context. It wasn't done for people who've lived perfect lives or have their junk together. No, the Bible tells us anyone who calls on the name of the Lord can find forgiveness for their sins and eternal life in Christ. Who are the many? Who are the people that Jesus died for? This is the problem or the challenge I see with the word many. Many can quickly feel impersonal. We can read these words that were spoken more than 2,000 years ago, and they can feel distant. It's easy to kind of read them and think, well, that was for another people, another place, another time. And when we think that way, celebrating Easter quickly becomes tradition instead of transformation. So today, if you remember one thing, just one thing. If at the end of this you don't like me very much, just remember this one thing. If at the end of this, you're like, man, I don't remember all the stuff that happened. I don't remember all the words of the song. Just remember this one thing. See, we at Experience Church, our intentions are very clear. We have no secret agenda. We have no ulterior motives. What we really want today, whether it's your first time or you're kind of used to the flow, what we want is to make sure that you know when Jesus hung on the cross, he was thinking about you. What we want you to know is that when Jesus stepped out of the tomb, he stepped out thinking about you. You were one in the many. In my house, I think we're great sports fans. We love sports. We get into it. We cheer well. We like to be fans. And in fact, ever since we've lived in Calgary, we have adopted the Flames as our second team. You got to cheer for the home team. And so, today, I know it's Resurrection Sunday, but many of us are mourning because the playoffs have started and the Flames are not there. Our hearts heavy. It was a valiant push, the home stretch. They deserved better. And so as fans, as Calgarians, we're like, but I do want to offer. If you're looking for someone to cheer for, there's room on the Maple Leafs bandwagon. Wow. I'm gonna pretend that that's cheers and not jeers. There's room. You can join me in my household and cheer for Canada. I almost wore a Leaf jersey today. Natasha said no. Now, we love sports. We love going to live sports. I love being in the room when the national anthem is sung. I almost always pull up my phone and capture a video. It's just amazing, the unity rallying around the lyrics of the song. I like the sea of colors of fandom. I like being at a Flames game and seeing the sea of red. And I liked even better a few weeks ago, we had the chance to go to a Leaf game in Toronto, and it was a sea of blue. It was incredible. Most people go into an environment like that because we're going to cheer for a team. My wife goes into those environments and her secondary motive is to cheer for a team. Her primary motive, like she walks into live sports with more energy than the team mascots. She gets in there. She's ready to go. And from the time we hit our seats, she is scanning the room looking for a cameraman who she can bother for the entire game. Because see, the only thing better than being one of thousands in a room cheering on your team to my wife is being one of the few faces that gets featured on the Jumbotron. That is a win. The team can lose. It can be pathetic. They can get blown out. But if she gets screen time, it's worth the price of admission. She's got that big screen energy. She just rolls in ready. And she's moving the whole thing. There is no relaxing sporting event. I like to go in. I like to sit and watch. I cheer loud when my team does something good. I criticize them when they're not playing well. I'm a true fan. Not my wife. Every break in the action, get up! Dance with me! We got to look like we're having fun. And she's just going for it in her seat. And she's got no respect for the game because she'll get up when the game is happening. I'm like, you cannot block people's view. She's like, I'm just trying to get the crowd going. She'll try and start the wave. We did this like sports weeks. We were in Toronto. We went to a few different sporting events. We're at the Jays game. There's a camera guy there. He's just doing his best. I don't even think he likes baseball. I think he's just got a gig, okay? So he's just trying to capture the game. And from our seat in the 200s, hey, cameraman, up here, look at my family. My kids are exhausted. They've been dancing for 2 hours. They don't even like baseball, and they're dancing, and she's yelling at the camera guy. He's feeling insecure. Security comes around him because they're worried that there's a threat to his life. She just wants to get on the screen. The problem is that it works. So at the end of every live sporting event we go to, there are two things I know for sure. I know we have no voices left. And it's not because we've been cheering for our team. It's because all of my kids know all the words to Sweet Caroline. And she's got us up out of our seat. We're just going for it. I know that's for sure. And I know we made it on the screen. We're at a Raptors game a couple of weeks ago. We got a poster board. Poster board is large. It obstructs views. We're sitting like 7 rows back from the court, and I'm trying to be modest. There are people sitting behind me. She's like, lift the poster board so we get on TV. I'm like, I'm not doing it during the game. And she's like, just lift it. We made a poster board because the TV stations will see the poster board. And so what happened? I creep it up. I kid you not. We got on the screen. It was my wife and a poster board. Not even my face. I brought some examples, actually. Let me walk you through what we've got going on here, okay? In the top left, we're at a T-Wolves basketball game, and those bongos are not real. They put fake bongos on the screen, and they're like, hey, what fool is going to play the fake bongos? We did. Bongos come up. She's like, come on, let's go. But then we got on the screen. The next one over, we're at a Minnesota Wild game. We were the only 2 people in Leaf jerseys. And so the Leafs are winning. We danced nonstop. We didn't even sit. That was captured on Sportsnet, okay? Then over there, I get on sometimes too, because now I've caught it. So that's me. This one, that's not us on the screen, her in the white shirt. That's just what we deal with at every sporting event everyone else is sitting down enjoying their peanuts and Cracker Jack. She's like, woo! woo, that's her, whole time. TV there. I mean, okay, I've had a couple moments myself. I want to draw your attention to the one in the middle. This one is especially painful on a personal level. I remember it very clearly. It was February 2019. We're at a Flames game together, bless you. And we're at the Flames game and we're cheering. She's doing her thing. We're getting the attention of the photographers. We're sitting fairly close. So she's berating somebody until they take our picture. She's like, ah, we're just doing all the things. The next day, this picture, I didn't crop this picture. A picture of both of us was taken. But the next day, on Narcity, Canada, or Calgary, she is the face of the Flames in an article. And I don't know if you've known, I am there on her left, but they cut out my face. That's what happens when you marry the life of the party. Everybody kind of forgets that you exist. Inevitably, when you see the face of somebody you know on the screen, our reaction when we see a friend is always like, I know him. I know them. And when these moments happen for us, there's generally somebody who's watching from home and they'll send us a picture and be like, hey, saw you guys on TV. We're like, yeah, success, amazing. Or they're in the room, hey, we're at the game too. It's this moment you share. She's not content to just be part of the crowd. She's a face in the crowd and she wants everybody to know, hey, that's my face. You know, today on Easter Sunday, globally, a total crowd of more than 2 billion people worldwide will gather to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It is amazing that what started in a manger with one grew, and then when he was hanging on the cross, it gained momentum. When he got up out of the tomb, it was the real fuel to the fire. And then with just a small group of followers trusted with his story and his testimony and his witness, we've gone from those humble beginnings to billions of people around the world. This worldwide celebration of Resurrection Sunday starts on continents. It happens in countries, and those countries have provinces and states. And in those provinces and states, people will celebrate in cities. And in those cities, people will celebrate in streets. And on those streets are rooms like this one. And in rooms like this, there are rows like yours and seats like the one you find yourself in. And stories like the story you carried into the room today. Not one story the same, not one journey identical, but all rallying around this singular thought. I'm here because of Jesus. You don't even have to believe today, and you're here because of Jesus. Every many is made up of ones. Individuals, unique in design and destiny, handcrafted by a creator who wired each of us up for this specific moment in history. Today, we are the faces in the crowd. But what about then? What about when he rose? The Bible gives us 5 names, 5 people who Jesus encountered after his resurrection, 5 conversations, 5 moments, 5 faces from the crowd thrown up on the jumbotron of history for us to observe and say, hey, I know them. The first there was Mary Magdalene, a devoted follower of Jesus. Mary had some history. The Bible tells us she was demon-possessed. She lived much of her life as a prostitute, chasing her identity and acceptance in one-night stands and hollow relationships. She was an outcast. She lived on the margins until she met Jesus. When she met Jesus, she was healed and restored. She owed him everything. And so when Mary showed up at the empty tomb on the 3rd day and did not see his body, she assumed it had been stolen. Resurrection had never happened before. There was no framework for even thinking it was possible. So Mary looks at an empty tomb and she is devastated. Disappointment hangs in the air like a morning fog. That's Mary. So blind by the tears of her trauma and the weight of her grief, she actually mistook Jesus for the gardener. I wonder today, as Mary's image goes up on the jumbotron of history, how many would look and say, I know her. I recognize her. I see myself in her because maybe your story is also one of deep pain. Maybe your story is also one that has deep disappointment. Maybe your story is also one that has been written and the narrative has been insecurity as you struggle to try and find some way to bring values to your life apart from God. I know her. That's Mary's story until Jesus calls her name. But then he calls her name. And he speaks to her identity. And in a moment, that disappointment becomes a thing of the past, and a hurting heart is made whole. The next character that we see on the jumbotron of human history, Luke chapter 24, tells us about Cleopas and his wife. He's with a travel companion. Again, most scholars assume it's his wife. So if this is the jumbotron of human history, this is probably the kiss cam. Okay, I have asked the Lord to get me on the kiss cam every time. Every time. I don't think I ask God for much, but I've been asking for the kiss cam my whole life. Okay, not my whole life, my whole married life. Because it'd be so great. It'd be so embarrassing for my kids. It'd be such a great picture to have. And so I'll sit there and they always want to get the guy that looks disinterested. So I'll just sit like stone-faced. But what I'm thinking about is making out. I'm just waiting for the camera to come, kind of watching out of the corner of my eye. As soon as it comes, man, I'm ready. I think Cleopas and his wife, it's the kiss cam. They're traveling the road from Jerusalem to Emmaus. They had come to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. They'd heard rumors about this Jesus from Nazareth, and hope began to stir in their hearts. Maybe he's the one who will free us from oppression. Maybe he's the one that will overthrow Rome and end years of tyranny. In fact, Luke describes them now on their journey away from Jerusalem. After the crucifixion, he says they're downcast. As they meet an unknown traveler on their route, they explain to him, "We had hoped." So for a moment, hope was alive, and for a moment, they thought things would change, and for a moment, they tried. But then, like every other religious leader they had known before, Jesus died. Now they're back to their routine and back to where they came from. And the hope that they had, the hope didn't work. We had hoped. To be downcast is quite literally to be pinned down. That can be what hopelessness feels like. I wonder if there's anybody here today and you're carrying the weight of some had-hoped moments. When you see the couple on the screen, you're like, man, we know them. I recognize them. I would notice the weight of hopelessness anywhere because we hoped we'd be pregnant and it hasn't happened. I had hoped I'd get the job. We had hoped God would heal. We had hoped our marriage would be restored. We had hoped we'd be over this. We had hoped things would be different by now. I know that look. Had hoped. What they didn't realize was that the unknown traveler was Jesus. And in their hopelessness, they again had no framework to believe for a resurrection. And it wasn't until later in their journey, traveling 7 miles, that they invite Jesus in for a meal. And it's when they invite him in and he breaks bread that something shifts and they realize who he was. Everything changes. Jesus will wait for an invitation. There are some of you here in the room, you had hoped. Jesus is not holding out on you. He's just waiting for an invitation to be with you. It's that easy. Jesus responds to invitations. Then there's Peter. Peter was a businessman. Peter was an entrepreneur. Peter was bold and passionate. Peter was the one who was like, Jesus, I'll be with you till the end, man. I'm your ride and die. Jesus, I got your back, until Jesus was arrested. Then Peter, who was committed when it was easy, was a coward when it mattered. And he hid, he lied, he denied, and his emotions got the best of him. And Peter was so full of shame that when he came to the empty tomb, shame was his filter. And he looked into the tomb and he saw the grave clothes folded. And John tells us Peter was still trying to figure it out. He had no framework, no context. He couldn't believe. And the cross to Peter was nothing more than a tragic end to a radical life. For some of us today, when Peter goes up on the big screen, when Peter has that big screen energy, you're like, I know him. I know Peter. I know what it's like to think, man, I am unworthy. I know what it's like to feel the weight of the shame of past mistakes. And some of you, that's where you are today. I know him, and shame was a prison for Peter. Regret was a filter. It was the weight of past mistakes. It would lead Peter back into his old life. It would lead Peter to the same habits, the same patterns, the same mindset, the same thinking, until Jesus showed up. When Jesus showed up, it's amazing. Jesus was not angry about the past mistakes. Jesus was not offended by Peter's rejection of him, which is a good reminder. Jesus is not looking at you today angry because of your past mistakes. He's not upset by how maybe you've rejected him or walked away from him or the decisions you've made. No. Jesus simply finds Peter and offers grace, mercy, and restoration, and he quickly replaces the condemnation Peter carried with a calling. Why? Because the power and the stranglehold of our worst days and our biggest mistakes, our past failures, they are broken and defeated on the cross, and through the resurrection, there was new life for Peter. You can't forget John. I like John. He gets some screen time too. John actually described himself as the one who Jesus loved. It might not come as a surprise to you that John was probably the youngest of the disciples. It's the youngest ones that have a kind of assume that they are most loved. You're not. The oldest ones let you believe it because we know we are most loved and most valuable and most useful. We generally have jobs and you freeload off mom and dad. John's the disciple Jesus loved. John stayed at the cross the longest. It was John who, while Jesus was hanging there, their eyes locked in a moment, and Jesus said, John, I need you to take care of my mom. John was practically family. And on the third day, he races to the tomb. And when he found it empty, he didn't believe. And almost more than anybody else, John, maybe he was naive. Maybe he was caught up in the cultural narrative and flow. But he thought that Jesus would be a military ruler. And when it looked like Rome had crushed Jesus, he was scared for his life. As someone so closely connected to the one that had been crucified, John and the other disciples locked themselves in a home. Afraid of the consequence, afraid of the fallout. And listen, when we don't believe in a resurrected Jesus, unbelief will lead us where it led John, into a place of fear, anxiety, and worry. When you do not have a supernatural hope, when you don't realize that God rewrites endings with resurrection power, fear will quickly dominate the headlines of your heart. There are people in this room today, and as you see John, you're like, I know him. I mean, you might not be that loud about it. You might not be that brash about it, but you know what it is to feel fear. You know what it is to wake up anxious. You know what it is to worry about the future. You know what it is to have anxiety about what's going to happen with your kids. You know what it is to be so uncertain. And fear dominates the headlines in your heart. And some of you are afraid to pray again, maybe afraid to try again, afraid to believe again, afraid to trust again. I know that person. I've tried it all before and it didn't work. I know the fear. John is locked in a prison of his own fear until Jesus comes in. In fact, the Bible tells us that Jesus entered the locked house and he didn't use the door. He just showed up. They're just hanging out in a locked house. Jesus is right there. As you can imagine and would expect, the disciples are freaked out. And what does Jesus say? He says, peace be with you. Not just the concept of peace. He was making an announcement of his arrival. He's like, no, I'm peace and I'm here. And so to John's fear, when he has this encounter with Jesus, Jesus is peace. When the situations we're facing defies all understanding and logic, Jesus is peace. When life is chaotic, Jesus is peace. When the doctors say we don't know what else to try, Jesus is peace. When the bills are due and you have no idea where the money's coming from, Jesus is peace. And he steps into fear. And finally, the fifth person to get some big screen time is a guy named Thomas. John chapter 20, verse 24, I want to read you a little bit of his story. It says, "Now Thomas, also known as Didymus." Now, if you had to choose, I would also go by Thomas. It's the nicknames for me. Tom is pretty good. I don't know if anyone wants to go by Diddy right now. No, it's Didymus. Please don't shorten it. Didymus. He's one of the 12, and the Bible tells us he was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "Hey man, we've seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and I put my finger where the nails were and I put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. And though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them. It's like a party trick at this point for Jesus. Locked doors. "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Hey man, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." And Thomas said, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you've believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." I love that. We have an opportunity at an even greater blessing than the disciples, because today we can gather as believers who did not see the physical Christ, but have known him in our hearts, and faith has created that bridge and that relationship. Blessed are those who haven't seen but believed. Now, if Thomas was on the Jumbotron, I think his appearance probably gets turned into a meme. For 2,000 plus years, people have been taking shots at Thomas. People have vilified Thomas for saying, "I won't believe unless I see." It has earned him the nickname Doubting Thomas. I think it's kind of unfair, because none of the other people who got this screen time, this Jumbotron time, none of them believed that first either. None of them, we didn't give them nicknames. We could have. Think about Mary. Mary's life was crazy. We could have called her Messy Mary. Nobody would have even, she would have been like, "Yeah, my life's a mess. It fits." Or Peter. Peter, who lied to a young girl around a campfire and said he didn't know Jesus. How come Peter doesn't have a nickname? Why aren't we calling him like Petrified Pete or Pathetic Pete? "Hey, Peter, here's another 13-year-old girl. Are you scared?" Pathetic. Like, we're not giving him a nickname. Cleopas walking with Jesus for almost 7 miles and doesn't know that it's Jesus, yet we just call him Cleopas. We're not calling him like Clueless Cleo or something. Like, these people deserve nicknames. Thomas is unfairly labeled by a moment of weak faith and unbelief. I'll be honest, today I'm glad people don't know all my secrets. I'm glad people don't know all the weakness I struggle with. I'm glad that people don't know all of the moments when it's hard for me to believe and when my faith is shaky. If you knew all that, I'd have nicknames too, and so would you. Thomas's nickname comes from some assumptions, because it says Thomas is one of the 12. He's not with the disciples. We just assume that he's not with the disciples because he's angry or something. We don't know. Why wasn't he there? We don't know if he's frustrated. We don't know if he's spiraling downhill in grief, drowning in a bottle of O2 AD Merlot. We don't know. In fact, Thomas at one point was one of the most outspoken disciples when he said, "We should go with the Lord, and if we go with him, we're ready to die with him." He was that committed, and now, wrong place at the wrong time. I don't know what happened. Maybe he was late. Maybe he got stuck behind a donkey. Maybe his camel broke down. We don't know. We just know he wasn't there. Maybe he had to work. Maybe he had a family crisis. We don't know. But he misses it. And the other disciples let him know. These are some friends. "Dude, you missed it. Jesus was here. We totally saw him, and you were late. What were you doing? You must have major FOMO." Like, they're just rubbing it in. And Thomas, listen, the resurrection was so beyond the scope of what is possible that he didn't believe, even when his closest friends were saying, "Buddy, this really happened." Impossible to believe 2,000 years ago. It's still hard to believe today. And he said, "Guys, I'll believe it when I see it." I want to see the nail holes. I want to see his side. And we've read that, and for so much of my life, I've read it and thought it was unreasonable. But then now, upon further review, I see that Thomas is just asking for what the others received. Because see, when they saw Jesus, he showed them his hands. So go ahead, guys, put your finger through there. Boop, 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 boop. Like it's crazy. It's a great party trick. Here, look at my side. Thomas isn't being crazy. Thomas is just saying, guys, I just want the experience you had. I want the same thing that you guys were able to have. I don't think he had a bad attitude. I don't think he was unholy. I don't think he was a greater skeptic or a bigger doubter. I think he wanted to believe, but his experience was different. And I wonder today if, like Thomas, there are people in this room, something in you wants to believe. You might even step into a space like this and you look at other people and how they sing or how they engage or how they lift their hands and be like, man, why isn't it that easy for me? Why doesn't it feel like that for me? What was there? I want to have that kind of experience. How come it looks like they connect with God and he feels so distant for me? To the ones who might struggle today in the room to believe, know that unbelieving is a part of everybody's journey to Christ. Unbelieving is a part of every story in this room. Unbelieving. Where does it come from? What's your experience been? What's the root of your unbelief? Did you pray for a loved one to be healed and then cry during their eulogy? Did you trust somebody with your heart and then have it broken? Someone who said they loved you but then discarded you. And so it's hard for you to love again. It's hard for you to trust that God could love you because what you've seen of love doesn't seem to be beneficial. Was it your family situation? What cultural context did you grow up in? What was your experience? I wonder if you were ever introduced to Jesus. What was that like? Did someone who said they loved Jesus or someone who said, hey man, I go to church and carried the name of Christian, did they let you down? Did they hurt you? Did they abuse you? Did they stab you in the back? What's your experience? Did you trust Jesus at one point and then turn and look to him in a time of need and wonder where he was, like the disciples searching an empty tomb, like Thomas with his questions? You just don't find him like you hoped to find him. Where were you? Have you asked those questions? Jesus, where were you in my divorce? Jesus, where have you been? I've been in addiction for so long. I've asked so many times. Where were you when I lost my job and just about lost my family? Where were you when I needed you the most? You know what impresses me about Thomas? It's where he went with his doubts. Because see, in verse 26, it says a week later, his disciples were in the house again and Thomas was with them. So, on Resurrection Sunday, they gathered in a house. It is the very first church service. A week later, they gather again. It's the second ever church service. Thomas wasn't there the first time when Jesus appeared. He missed the moment. He thought he missed God. But man, I love that Thomas came back the next week. I love that Thomas, who probably spent all week thinking, man, if that really happened for them, why did I miss that experience? Why didn't it happen to me? Why isn't that the way my life has played out? Still with his doubt and his questions thought, there's nowhere better. I'll go back to the house. So I give Thomas some credit. He did not quit in his doubt. He did not give up in his uncertainty. He came back. And I am keenly aware that that might be the story for hundreds of people in the room today. You're here and you struggle to believe. You're here and there's something in you that wants to believe, but it's been a fight. And it was a fight even to get up and say yes to an invitation or to respond to an ad and to show up in the room. And you got up and you drove here and you paid for parking because you love parking downtown. And you stepped in. I just want the experience other people seem to have. I don't even believe, but I want to believe. I'll just be in the room. I honor you for stepping into the room. I honor you for having the courage to show up. I honor you. And here's what I know. If you didn't want to believe, you wouldn't be here. If there wasn't something gnawing away at the inside of you, that is eternity, which has been placed in the heart of every man, woman, and child. That's eternity saying, I'm longing for something more, and you have yet to have it fulfilled and satisfied. That's why you said yes to the invite. And what happens? Thomas is in the room. I believe there's a desperation. God, I showed up. Now prove it. Just prove it to me that this is real. And what happens? Though the doors were locked, Jesus comes and stands among them and says, peace be with you. Maybe that's you today. God, prove it. I'll give you one more chance. I'll give you one more Easter. I'll give you one more yes. I'll give you one more moment. But just prove it. I'm tired of wondering if this is real. I'm tired of searching. I've got to know that there's something to this. Jesus walked in. Actually, Jesus walked through because the doors were locked and he shows up. And Jesus didn't just come out of the grave. I believe Jesus came back into the room. Why? Because there was one man with a doubt. Why? Because there was one man with a broken heart. Why? Because there was one man with a question. Why? Because there was one man who was uncertain about his future. Why? Because there was one man who was broken on the inside and needed a healer. Why? Because there was one man who was desperate and searching. And Jesus said, man, I'll jump back in that room. And he says, Thomas, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out. Put your hand in my side. Stop doubting and believe. I love it. Thomas didn't even get the words out. Thomas didn't even have a chance to be like, well, if you are Jesus, prove it. No, Jesus showed up, stepped into the room and said, Thomas, I know exactly what you're looking for. I know exactly what you need. And the same thing that happened then is happening right now. I believe in every row, in every seat, Jesus knows exactly what you're looking for, exactly what you need, exactly the doubt that you carry, the question you have, the hurt that's been holding you back. And he hasn't just walked into the room today. He's walked through. He's walked through every doubt and through every fear and through your uncertainty and through every question. Has walked through your shame and your condemnation because he's not afraid of doubt. He's not intimidated by your inquiries. He steps into them. And in that moment, Thomas says, my Lord and my God. There's a revelation. Something happens. See, I don't think Thomas ever doubted Jesus. I don't think Thomas, he had seen so much. I don't know if Thomas doubted Jesus. I wonder if Thomas had more faith than all of them. I wonder if Thomas just doubted himself. I wonder if Thomas doubted if he was worthy enough to be extended grace again. And Jesus steps through and Thomas realizes who it is. Listen, if Jesus will come back for Thomas, if he resurrected for Thomas, yes, there were many, but that in that moment, there was just one that mattered. And if he would do that for him, he'll do it for you. If he resurrected for Thomas, you need to know today, you are one in the many. He resurrected for you. There are thousands in the room. There are billions celebrating around the world. But if it was just you, Jesus would still step into the room and step through and say, I'm here, and your life can change. And if he came through for Thomas, Jesus will come through for you. And so if you're searching, if you're wondering, if you're hurting, if you're broken, if you're reaching, if you're grasping, Jesus has come through for you. That's the message of Easter. It's the glory of the resurrection, that when it looked like death won, Jesus came through. Jesus came through. Jesus came through. Not for nameless, faceless people, but for every person who would stop and believe. He came through for you. Came through for you. Before we go today, I'd love everybody to stand with me for just a moment. Before you leave, nobody moves. We just stand for a moment. Let's bow our heads, close our eyes. He came through for you. He came through for you. He came through for you. This is just a moment between you and God. I don't know everybody's spiritual journey. I don't know where you're at today, but I know He came through for you. So to every person with your heads bowed and your eyes closed who feels out of place, to everybody who might feel late to the party, for everyone who might think you missed out on the miracle, for everybody who might think, man, this is too good to be true, for everybody who might think my sin is too great, there's no way back for me. He came through for you. He came for you. We are the many and you are the one. So if you know today that it's time to get things right with the Lord, if you know today that you're not here by accident, but this has been a divine appointment and God is calling and pulling on your heartstrings, saying, trust me with your future, it's time to get things right, then I want to pray a prayer with you with every head bowed and every eye closed. I'm going to count to 3. And if it's time for a change, if it's time to give your life to Jesus, when I hit 3, I want you to shoot your hand up so I know who I'm praying with. If that's you, here we go. 1, 2, if that's you today. 3, shoot it up, way up so I can see it. Amazing. Thank you, 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 thank you. Hands through the middle, hands on the sides, hands up in the balcony. Thank you for this bold step of faith. Yes, Jesus, I need you. I'll just give 1 more minute. If you haven't lifted your hand yet, there's still time. If that's you, thank you. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Maybe you lifted a hand. Maybe you made that decision in your heart. I'm going to ask you to repeat this prayer with me today. Experience Church, let's pray it together. Say, Jesus, I need you. Come into my heart. Forgive me my sins. I trust you with my future. Amen. Amen. Experience Church, can we make some noise and celebrate everybody that made that